Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In my Zen sanctuary here. Hope you like it. I like my Zen sanctuary. It's on a bad angle. Okay, here we are in my Zen sanctuary. Yes. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari. Welcome back to our series on Yoga Maya. Welcome back to our series on Yoga Maya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Itai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Oh, you get it. You like my new room? I hope you like it. I'm going to move back. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, we're going to continue speaking about the glories of Yoga Maya and how we spoke about a few weeks, it was a week or so ago, about Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a prayer to Yoga Maya. So like sometimes we pray to Maya, leave me alone. He was praying to Yoga Maya, don't leave me alone. I want you. Okay. Let's do Kirtan, if we can. Let's see if I can rearrange this. Put my keyboard up in front here. Just how far we can go. Yeah. In concert mode. Put keyboard like this. Yes. Now I can face all of you. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Simate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschacha Desatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Shri Krishna Govinda. Hari Murari. He Natha Narayana Bhajavasudeva. Go Brahmanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Let me just move the keyboard. Gauranga Nityananda. Mahavishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschajara Satarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Hari Hari Bo, Hari Hari Bo. Hari Hari Bo. So, we have to bring up the document. We're going to begin reading. Welcome to everyone. Does anyone remember what we spoke about last week? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yes, we had Kirtan this weekend. Radhadesh Mellows. And we did the Alachua version. Some of you saw it. Yeah, we had so many great Kirtaniyas there. The all-star cast is in Alachua. Okay, so the last thing we discussed was about Subhadra. Subhadra as Yogamaya, but the external feature of Yogamaya. That was the last thing we read. So we're beginning to read. This document is on page 40, and we're also reading about Yogamaya, Subhadra's Yogamaya. We actually read this also. So, Nadia, we're going to begin reading a conversation with Upendra and Prabhupada, which is on page 41. Upendra says, Prabhupada, can you explain Maha-Maya and Yogamaya? Was Arjuna under Yogamaya or Maha-Maya? Prabhupada. Arjuna, when he was thinking in terms of his personal sense gratification, he was under Maha-Maya. And when he agreed to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he is under Yogamaya. Upendra. How is it Arjuna if he was eternally liberated? In other words, how could he be in Maya if he's an eternal associate of Krishna? Good questions, right? Prabhupada, Arjuna, when he was thinking in terms of his personal sense gratification, okay. How is it Arjuna if he was eternally liberated? Prabhupada, because he is a living entity, he is marginal. There is a chance. Marginal means, I have explained several times, just like the land between the ocean and the land, there is a portion of land which is sometimes merged within the water, sometimes it is land. So a living entity's position is like that, marginal energy. He may be under the influence of Yogamaya, or he may be under the influence of Maha-Maya. When he is under the influence of Maha-Maya, that is his conditional life. And when he is under the influence of Yogamaya, he's free. So there's another place where Prabhupada said, Arjuna was in Maha-Maya, but he was put in Maha-Maya by Krishna, so the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. So his Maha-Maya was basically like Yogamaya, but it had all the symptoms of Maha-Maya because he was put in illusion to ask those questions. So these are subtle nuances of the Leela. But here, Prabhupada is choosing to speak on Tattva. And he's saying, yes, the living entity always has independence. Though he's saying, theoretically, even an eternal associate could be in Maya, which, we would say, no, that's not possible. That doesn't make sense. Eternal associate can't be in Maya. And that's true. But Prabhupada's making a point, and I think we've discussed this before, he's making a point that living entity always has independence, and he often makes this point, and it seems that Prabhupada, even with questions like this, which would be just easy to say, well, he's the eternal associate of Krishna, and he was put in this kind of Maya by Krishna to speak Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna could speak Bhagavad Gita. But here Prabhupada chooses not to answer it that way. He wants to make this other point. That you and I always have independence, so we can always make the wrong choice, even from an ideal position. And then you have the classic example, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled with a servant named Krishnadas. And at one point, he and Krishnadas were separated temporarily, and Krishnadas was lured away by some gypsy woman. There's a song about that. But I don't think the song was about Krishnadas. But anyway, it's a universal song. Marco must know that song. He knows all the songs. Gypsy woman, you cast your spell on me, something like that. Is that how it goes, Marco? But that's actually what happened. He was allured away from Mahaprabhu's personal service by some gypsy woman. You cast a spell on me. Sometimes Prabhupada talks about Maya, the spell of Maya. Like, I'm not in my ordinary right mind anymore. I'm under the influence of a spell. So that happens when we fall in love sometimes. So living entity always has independence, so even Krishnadas, the servant of Mahaprabhu, made a free will, independent choice to spend some time with the gypsy woman instead of Mahaprabhu's service. Now you're saying, that is unbelievable. And all I can say is, never underestimate the power of Maya to bewilder someone. So Prabhupada wants to make that point here. He's like, you always have independence, therefore be careful, because you can always make the wrong choice. There's no situation where you're safe, at least for us in our existential condition. Until we have prema, we're not safe. Even Maharaj Bharat fell from Bhav, which is, of course, rare, but it does illustrate that prema is the only secure position. So until we're on the level of prema, watch out, beware. You always have independence, and you can misuse it. Okay, now we're going to see if Marco has the song. Well, I don't even know if Marco's here. That would require that he's here to tell us the song. Right. Oh, Black Magic Woman by Santana. Oh, that's it on the album. It's an instrument called Gypsy Queen. No, I think there's another song from my time. This is from your time. But my time, because Santana became popular after I was a devotee, so I really wouldn't know his songs. But anyway, I'll check it out. Try to see. Can somebody Google Gypsy Woman? Not Gypsy Queen, Gypsy Woman. Cast a spell on me. Something like that. Anyway, even if we don't get the song, we know what's going on. Yeah, we know there's problems. There's problems out there in the material world, right? Yes? You know it's true. Okay. In case you don't know, you probably realize this is behind me is what do you call it? It's a video curtain backdrop. But because I'm not on the right angle, it's not straight. Anyway, I'm experimenting. I just got it the other day. I don't know if it's going to work for the classes. It'll work for my other videos. It needs to be lit properly also. Anyway, it's an attempt to make a nice backdrop for professional use. But I don't know. This doesn't look so great. At least not in its present incarnation. It needs more light and it needs different angle. Anyway, I have another idea. Don't give up on me. There's still hope. Okay. Jimi Hendrix? Jimi Hendrix, Gypsy Woman. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Jimi Hendrix. Cast a spell on me. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened to Krishnadas. Jimi Hendrix was singing Chaitanya Charitamrita and he didn't even know it. So that story to me is amazing. Oh, Tim Buckley, Gypsy Woman. Wow. That's another one. There's a lot of gypsy women out there. Wow. Creating all kinds of problems for these poor guys. Gypsy woman, behave yourselves. Yeah. But I think what I was thinking is gypsy woman. Jimi Hendrix, yeah. Anyway. So, but you meditate on this story, Krishnadas, he's with Mahaprabhu, and he's allured by women. That is unbelievable. If it can happen to Krishnadas, it could happen to anybody. Yes or yes? Glad you all agree. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's continue reading. This is a letter, 1968. It's so interesting. Don't you find it interesting, these early letters and these early questions, how intelligent the devotees were? It was like they're already devotees for 100 lifetimes, and now they met Prabhupada. And they're finishing up their business. It's like they kind of already understand all this. They're asking questions and having insights that, very, very new devotees generally wouldn't have. Of course, being in Prabhupada's association, that we're getting lots of support, lots of realization. But still, I find it interesting, some of the conversations that go on very early in the movement with Prabhupada and how insightful they are. So, November 14th, 1968, regarding your questions. Your first question, are great sages put under Yoga Maya or Maya? Also, are all the eternally liberated souls under Yoga Maya? Yoga Maya means the mercy of the Supreme Lord, which connects a devotee in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And Maha-Maya means the external potency of the Lord, which puts a conditioned soul into illusion that he will be happy by material adjustment. If I only had this, then I would be happy. Now, it's interesting here because Prabhupada is explaining why everyone thinks that way, because everyone does think that way. Even the people who have everything, they think that way. Well, if I just could control this, change this, get rid of this guy, paint it this color, get it a little bigger, a little smaller, put the kitchen over here, put another additional room out there, put in a new desk. Then and only then will I be happy. So Prabhupada's explaining why, and the answer is simple. It's called Maya. Influence of the external potency. Puts a conditioned soul into illusion that he will be happy by material adjustment. So great sages who are impersonalists are also under the spell of Maha-Maya. You've heard it right here today. Great sages who are impersonalists are also under the spell of Maha-Maya, because a conditioned soul in the material world wants to improve his material position as exalted as possible. And the concept of becoming one with the Supreme Lord is the greatest illusion for them. What can be better than becoming God? Doesn't get much better than that. Well, it does, becoming a servant, but from the conditioned perspective. Becoming a lover of God is much better than becoming God. They don't know that. But so for them, from the material calculation, I want to be great. So if I could become God, then I'm the greatest. So Prabhupada's saying they're in Maya. Same kind of Maya, different strategy. Well, let's get a lot of money. Let's become president of the United States. Let's start a big company. Let's become whatever. And when that doesn't work, well, why don't we just become God? That should solve the problem. Then I'll be the greatest in everything. So it's an extension. It's just a different strategy. Extension of the same mentality. Because it is a fact that nobody can be equal or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, anyone desiring to become one with the Supreme means that he is still in the trap of Maya. On the other hand, a humble devotee who may not be a great sage, but simply by his implicit acceptance of the lotus feet of the Lord as the goal of his life, means that he is under the protection of Yoga Maya. I think this will clear the idea. So all of us, if we follow Prabhupada's instructions, we follow in his footsteps, then we are under the protection of Yoga Maya, even though we may not be very advanced, even though we may be new devotees. We're still under the umbrella of Yoga Maya. And you may be a great sage, impersonalist, and you are not under the umbrella of Yoga Maya, but Maha-Maya. Here's another letter. This is now, wow. Now we're going to 1949. Prabhupada writes a person named Jagannath Babu. I think he was I'm not sure, a wealthy land owner, or maybe a godbrother, or both. She gives all the necessities for our existence. But as soon as we become an asura, like the Mussolinis and such others, for the exploitation of the material energy, the Durga Devi at once appears herself with her dreadful trident and begins to devastate the whole existence by such tribulations as war, famine, pestilence, or sometimes annihilation of a total existence. That's kind of relevant to what's going on today. Karmic reaction. War, famine, pestilence, COVID, so forth. It's Maya reacting to the sinful activities of people in general, but Prabhupada's saying here of the leaders especially. The methods of annihilation as are invented by the human brain, such as the atomic bomb, etc., are also her creations. but the deluded asuras who are caused to act by the modes of material nature do think themselves as the originator or inventor of such weapons. In other words, Prabhupada's saying, if there's a karmic reaction meant to come upon human society, then we may think we created weapons or we created the situation that caused the death of people. But he said actually Maya is orchestrating it and just using people to do it. It's a heavy statement, but it's a reality we face today. In that way, a constant struggle is going on between the asuras and the prakriti, and the asuras are thus being punished in different ways, which the asuras cannot overcome by any method except by full surrender unto the Almighty God. In other words, you can try to counteract material nature, but if you continue committing sin, material nature is going to keep fighting back. A new strain of COVID, or a few new strains. Like, when's it going to end? Now in America, one of the members of Congress is found COVID positive, and he's already had 2 COVID shots. So the question is, when are people going to learn? And we see that people look at the cause, the immediate cause. They don't understand the cause is removed from the immediate cause, and that's why these problems never get solved, because they're only focusing on the immediate cause. But Prabhupada has told us that all these problems are caused by sinful activities, especially the killing of cows. And we could add the abortion of, killing of all animals, abortion, killing of cows. There's a price people pay. There's a reaction. So we're seeing the reaction. You might say, well, it was negligence in China, or there's a laboratory, they were fooling around with it, and they weren't careful, or they're actually trying to do it to eliminate a certain amount of the population. It doesn't really matter. It's just happening. And whatever caused it, even if you have some conspiracy theory, evil-minded people, what Prabhupada's saying, but Maya's using those people because it's a sinful reaction. And that's why it doesn't matter. It could be a conspiracy to annihilate the human race, but it's actually Maya's doing as a consequence of sinful reaction. And she's using that other person to do it. So it's not actually as bad as you think. And in one sense, it's worse than you think. But it's not, in terms of evil-minded people destroying the world, if the sinful reactions reach a certain point, then Maya will use them, Durga will use them to create some havoc, which is destined because of that karmic reaction for the sins committed, primarily the slaughter of cows, abortion of babies, godlessness in general. So then there's going to be a reaction. So that's what's happening. So, people say, oh, could be caused by this or that. It's caused by sinful reaction. Those other causes are just subsequent causes, not the cause of all causes. Right? In one place in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, if we stopped killing the cow, it would stop the wars. It would stop. He said all the problems we face are because of killing of cows. That's interesting. Who other than someone who understands the Vedas would ever conceive of such a thing? It just would make no sense to the Western mind or the materialistic mind. So they'll look for to do such things as create more atomic weapons, because that way, if we have enough, then Korea's not going to mess with us, because we could we're equipped to retaliate in a way that they would regret fighting with us, or any country. So that's our strategy, rather than stop meat eating and get to the cause. So that's why these things are going to happen. Now, one time Prabhupada said something very heavy. And because it's not too late at night for any of you, I will tell you. Otherwise, you may have nightmares. But he said there's a proliferation of atomic weapons, and they're stockpiling atomic weapons, which means they'll be used. They're not just going to sit there. They'll get used. So Prabhupada has predicted. Now, whether it happens or not, a lot would depend on the piety or impiety of our civilization. If people become more spiritual, especially if they become devotees, stop killing cows, chant the holy name, it could avert a disaster. And one time Prabhupada predicted there was a war. And it never happened. And the devotee said, Prabhupada, you said there was going to be a war. It didn't happen. He said, well, Sankirtan movement stopped it. So that's interesting. But Prabhupada has made made predictions of masses of people being killed, masses of people leaving the city, just, all the doomsday conspiracy theories. Prabhupada made those long ago, but he was stating it kind of as a matter of fact that this is the quality of your leaders, this is the quality of a human civilization. Do the math, you get the consequence, and these are going to be the consequences, that material nature will fight back. And so she's already, this is, in our lifetime, this is the, first time we've seen her fight back in a major way. And none of us, I think, have lived through war to see the carnage and devastation. But huge, huge karmic reaction to sinful activity. And we're trying, resolve it through political means, because that's the only means we know how to use, because we don't understand these other causes. Correct? Correct. Correct. Mm-hmm. So I will read your comments. Should we end the show with Gypsy Woman by Jimi Hendrix? No, I'd probably pollute the environment, right? Krishna Karshani says, the story of Krishna Das is a bit discouraging for me. If fall down may happen in the presence of God, what chance to not fall down do we have? It seems we are hopeless. You have Prabhupada, therefore. You just grab onto his dhoti, you're good to go. And the proof is that so many people have become Krishna conscious by grabbing onto Prabhupada's dhoti. Dhoti, not dhoti. Dhoti. Get your dhoti and kurta on, Prabhu. No, it's dhoti kurta. And you have to go like this also when you say it. Dhoti kurta. And if you're from New Zealand, it's a kurta. Get your kurta on, Prabhu. Prabhupada. Where's a kurta? In New Zealand. So, this story is there as a warning sign. Be careful. It's not a story. The story's not there to discourage you. Like, okay, here's the story. Krishna Das. So the conclusion of the story is just give up. Krishna Das couldn't do it, and he was with Lord Chaitanya. What hope do we have? Just go out and enjoy. Give up all this austerity, tapasya, getting up early, chanting japa. Just go out and have a good time. Krishna Das couldn't do it. Why are you wasting your time? You're never going to do it. That is the voice of Maya speaking to you. What do they have? The voice of the BBC or these radio shows? What is that show? The voice of something, The voice of England. And this is the voice of Maya speaking to you. And then Prabhupada is saying, you follow this process, you can become Krishna conscious. So the moral of the story is, follow it, you have no problem. But if you don't follow it, you have all kinds of problems. And you can make that choice to follow or not follow. So let us learn from the story of Krishnadas that he had a choice. He just made a bad one. And you can learn to make a good choice. And when people make mistakes, we're supposed to think, okay, they made a mistake. I'm not going to make the same mistake. They made that mistake for me, so I don't have to make it anymore. Right? That's the idea. Krishnadas already made the mistake for you, Krishna Karshini. So you do not have to make the mistake. He already made it for you. You learn by his mistake. Is that good? Yeah, that's how we see it. Okay. When we were young devotees, we thought the older devotees, like the 3-year-old devotees, the ones who are like 24, which is like really old. If you're 19, 24 is like, wow, you're really old, Prabhu. And you've been a devotee like how many years? You've been a devotee 4 years? Oh my God, that is so long. You're so senior. I'm serious. For us, that was like, you are 24, you're like an antique, and you've been a devotee 4 years? You have been a devotee so long. That's amazing. And then one day, they're gone. Wow. Devastation. We thought they were infallible. Couldn't take it. And so what did Prabhupada want us to think? He wanted us to think, if he could go, you better tighten your belt, because you could go a lot easier than him. So if he can go, learn the lesson, be careful. If he could fall, anybody could. So, tighten your belt. Or as we might say, tighten your copins. That's the lesson. That's the way we're supposed to take it. Not like, well, if he can't do it, what about me? Take me to the sweet shop. I'm just going to eat chocolate today. No, that's a sign of a weak person. A sign of a strong person as well. I've got to be really careful. I really have to do better than I'm doing now, because if he could fall, I could fall. That's how you take it. Is that okay, Krishna Karshini? Krishna Karshini is saying, I thought I had a good excuse for relaxing today. Nope, you don't. Krishna says, reminds me of the quote of Prabhupada, the more we become godless, the more we'll be punished by the laws of nature. Yeah, it's like, it's the unfortunate thing about COVID. I think the biggest misfortune that COVID has brought is that I don't see people really getting it. Like, did we do something wrong? No, the Chinese did it. It's all their fault. They shouldn't have had that meat, or maybe it was the protocol in the laboratory wasn't followed well, and then the virus, contaminated something that got out of the laboratory that contaminated or whatever. Yeah, people don't understand. No, this is a reaction to sinful activity. You want to blame it on the Chinese? No, that's just a cause, but the original cause is your sinful activity. So if people got that, that would be great. Politicians desperately need spiritual knowledge. Yeah, the problem is spiritually minded politicians never get voted in. Well, in India you have Modi, but still, he's not a pure devotee. So he's into industrialization and all modern economic theories to build India. Not really Prabhupada's idea. As a soul, we are marginal. Krishna Karshini says, as a soul, we are marginal by nature. Meaning, we tend to fall down. We can fall down. Not that we tend, you have the choice. So after coming back to the spiritual, we are losing this tendency to fall down, and there's no risk to fall down again. No. Yes and no. You don't lose the tendency. You can't lose the tendency to be independent, because independent is not a tendency, it's your nature. So going back to the spiritual world, you always have independence. You just won't misuse it. So you still have the tendency, you could say, if you want to use that word, probably not a good word. You have the independence to choose, but you won't choose the wrong thing. So that's why Krishna says, once going back, you won't come back. But in theory, you could make the wrong choice, but you won't. I hope you won't. Will you? In Prabhupada's days, all the devotees lived at the temples and served full time. Why did this change now? I remember you're saying now 90% of the devotees live outside of the temple. That, Christe, you need to do a PhD and study that. I can give you my 2 cents. If you met Prabhupada, you would also want to surrender everything and move in the temple, just by seeing him, being in his presence. You okay, check this out. I don't know if you know this, but this is interesting. You know that George Harrison had become very interested in Krishna consciousness, right? And at one point, he asked Prabhupada, should I shave up and move in the temple? This is George Harrison, right? Like the biggest band, the biggest rock band that ever hit the face of the planet. And he's asking, should I shave my head? And I think his biggest success was after the Beatles broke up. All things must pass, and like that. My sweet Lord. Or the song. Yeah. Anyway, he became super successful, always was. And he's asking Prabhupada, should I shave up and move in the temple? Now people say, what was it like to be with Prabhupada? And he said, even George Harrison wanted to become a Hare Krishna. That's what it was like. Does that answer your question, why there are so many people in the temple? Okay. But the answer is why there's so many grihastas is the same. Prabhupada left. There was a shift in energy. Along with the shift in energy, where there was a shift in age. People were, I was 27 when Prabhupada left. So that's, by 30, if a woman isn't married, she really, really, she starts to worry, I'm getting old, how am I going to have children, and so forth. So by the time, a few years after Prabhupada left, his female disciples were all around that age where, like, I need to get married. So they were ready, they were anxious. And then the men were approaching that age. And these were all men who thought they would remain brahmachari. But when they hit that age without Prabhupada's presence and that real spirit of renunciation and revolutionary spirit, it had weakened it a little bit. So it was a combination. I don't think it would have been entirely different if Prabhupada were still here. It would have been different, but still, those men reaching that age who'd want to marry would still marry. So it was kind of, shifting of energies. The other reason is that so many people were joining. So many people were joining and so few were getting married. Now, most people joining are going to be married or are already married. Whereas in those days, people were joining, were living in temples thinking, I'll never get married. Why should I get married? I just want to distribute books my whole life. And then all of a sudden, gypsy woman cast a spell on me. Do-do-do. So there were a lot of, the devotee women aren't gypsy women, but, they were brahmacharis for so many years, but at a certain point, they realized, I can't do this for life. So, all these things were going on simultaneously. But if we were making as many devotees as we were making while Prabhupada was with us, then we would have lots and lots of brahmacharis living in the temple, and brahmacharinis. But when Prabhupada left, it was devastating, and it had affected us a bit in terms of making new devotees. So more devotees were getting married, leaving the brahmachari ashram, and they weren't being replaced by equal numbers of new devotees. That's what happened. But if the new devotees were coming in the same numbers as they always were, then it wouldn't be 90%. But there's a shift in society. Now a lot of people didn't want to unglue themselves from their careers and so forth and move in temples. So in my day, that's what they did. You just moved in a temple. You didn't think, I want a career and I want to be Krishna conscious. That in your head in the late 60s, early 70s, there was no place for both in your head. It was like one or the other, Maya or Krishna. If I want Krishna, I move in the temple. If I want Maya, I just live outside and enjoy. That was kind of, not exactly like that, but it was a lot like that. And we didn't have congregations. We didn't know what a congregation was. We didn't need a congregation. We had enough people in the temple to do everything. So if people were part of the congregation, we didn't even notice them. As strange as that sounds, because they didn't move in the temple. They were like, you're kind of useless, you've been coming to the temple for 3 years and you didn't move in. So we don't really need you. I mean, serious. We didn't treat people that way, but that was the thought process. Like, yeah, it's fine, come to the temple, but kind of you're not really helping us. And so there wasn't even a consciousness of congregation in those days. There was very little congregation. And we didn't really bother with people in the congregation, other than to think that something's wrong with them. Why aren't they moving in the temple? That's how we thought. Why is he not moving in the temple? What is wrong with him? We couldn't understand. Why would you live outside? That's like, if you believe in Krishna, why would you live outside? It makes no sense. So that's a little history for your PhD dissertation on why so many people are married. A lot of devotees were married even during Prabhupada's time, but there was an influx of brahmacharis and a consciousness that it would be best to remain brahmachari. So, and they were all young, so they weren't thinking about getting married. Anyway, that is a answer, maybe not the complete entire answer. Marco says, instead of being bewitched by Maha-Maya's gypsy eyes, we should pray to Yoga-Maya to show us Mukunda's lotus eyes. Okay, great line for a song. Start working on that song today. We want to hear it. Shravani says, the best part of that story is that Lord Chaitanya rescued his fallen servant, brought him back, yes, to Jagannath Puri. And then the devotee took care of him, giving him some service. Yeah, it's true. Glorious is that servant who will never leave his master, and glorious is that master who, if the servant leaves, will grab him back by the hair. There's a verse like that. So what? Chinese are always the best to blame. They're always guilty for everything. Yeah, we just blame the Chinese. Yeah. Need someone to blame? Blame the Chinese. We had fun last Saturday night. I was giving a class to the Chinese, and I was saying, you may not be very Krishna conscious, but, just do the best you can. And I was saying, sometimes you buy something, and it's so cheap, like you use it for 3 days and it breaks, and you have to get some tape and tie it together. I say, like things made in China. They thought that was so funny. Which is not entirely true. Chinese make some really good things, and they make some really cheap things as well. Fabiola is asking, how can I help a fallen devotee get back on the right path? Well, make sure you're on the right path. And through compassion, understanding, empathy, association, encouragement, don't judge, don't criticize. If you want to help somebody get back on the path, don't judge, don't criticize, don't condemn, don't blame, don't make them feel bad. Try to encourage them to do something, anything. Chant one round, read one verse, do a little seva. I hope that helps. Fabiola, let me know your results if that works, or if you have more to ask about that. Christe says, I was thinking. You know, Christe, that could be dangerous. At least according to the Buddhists, thinking is dangerous. Better don't think. Do meditation where you don't think. Just focus your mind on a spot on the wall and just stare at it and breathe. And just feel. Stop thinking. Because as soon as you start thinking, things get dangerous, isn't it? That's Buddhist philosophy. Thinking is dangerous. Better don't think. Okay, so I was thinking, is it because temples don't provide the same conditions for the devotees, or devotees lack enthusiasm? Well, there's not a lot of women's ashrams. And it's true, there's not a lot of... some temples have men's ashrams. There's only one minor problem. There's no men in it. So if you join, you'll kind of have to train yourself, and you'll be the only one living in the temple. So that does pose a bit of an obstacle for moving in the temple, right? Some temples, nobody lives there. The devotees come and do the puja, but no one lives there. So you want to live there, that's kind of awkward. New devotee. Moves in, steals everything, next day gone. So yeah, it is a different situation, because in Prabhupada's time, all brahmacharis, everyone lived together. So that's part of the reason. Lack of enthusiasm? There's a lot of enthusiastic devotees. That's for sure. But during Prabhupada's time, very enthusiastic and a lot of devotees living in temples. So that helps, right? I often feel we do nothing in comparison to what devotees did for Prabhupada. It's nice to feel that way, if that inspires you to do something. But what we did for Prabhupada was very spontaneous and very, very genuine. It wasn't like, have to get up again tomorrow morning. God among Arctic. I have to go on Sankirtan. I wish I didn't have to go. No, it was just the opposite. Very spontaneous, because having Prabhupada's association was so inspiring that that's just how we felt. Like the more I surrender and the more austerity I do, the happier I am. So it was like, just give me more service, more austerity, more surrender, fantastic. That's what I want to do. That's what Prabhupada inspired. So, to be in the presence of a pure devotee, it's a special time. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he opened 64 temples in India, and I think one in Burma, and one in England or Germany. So it was and his movement was incredibly dynamic. So much was going on, so much education, so much book distribution, so many temples, so much was going on. Then after he left, it was difficult to maintain that high level of energy and unity. The same thing happened after Prabhupada left. And there's nothing wrong with that, in the sense it's to be expected that in the presence of such an exalted person, these amazing things are going to happen, but it doesn't mean that we still can't continue at a high level. But it's natural that devotees were enthusiastic. So I remember so many times I'd visit the temple in LA, Prabhupada was there, and I would just pray to Prabhupada, like, whatever you want, I'll do it. Just, guide me, I'm ready, So he wanted book distribution, so that's what we did. We just went out all day, 10 hours, 12 hours. Lived simply and distributed books. And we knew it pleased him, so we were so happy to do it. And it may have been austere, may not have been austere. I can't remember. It's not how we thought. Is it austere? Is it not austere? Who knows? It's just That's what Prabhupada wants. We just do it. So that's the idea. Austere. I don't even remember if it was austere. I guess it was austere. I mean, sleeping in a van, eating granola for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I guess that's austere, but I didn't notice it. It was just, this is blissful. It's Prabhupada's service. We would eat granola for breakfast. We'd get up, chant rounds, read Bhagavatam, get out on the street like 8, 9 o'clock, eat granola before we go out, take another pack of granola for lunch. And then we'd stay out till like 8, 9 o'clock at night. So we'd be on the street 12 hours, come back, have granola for dinner, little Krishna book, and call it a day. You know, we were happy campers. Why? Because we knew that pleased Prabhupada. So, what was it like to see Srila Prabhupada? As one godbrother said, you got me to shave my head, put on bed sheets, and go out on the street and jump up and down like popcorn. All right, now, you know, this was like well-educated, cultured young man. You got him to shave his head. Now, this is hippies, to shave their head. I mean, what to speak of doing anything, the 4 principles, just to get a hippie to shave his head, that's huge, right? You got me to shave my head, put on bed sheets. For us, devotees look like bed sheets. We never saw them before. And go out on the street and jump up and down like popcorn. All right. What was it like to be with Prabhupada? Yeah, that's what would happen to you. Be careful if you want to see him. You'll also shave your head, put on bed sheets, and jump up and down on the street like popcorn. So, you know, you just look at the stories of what happened during Prabhupada's time, and you're thinking, wow, these devotees are so great. It's true. But actually, they're just reflecting Prabhupada's Shakti. And that's why they were doing these things. Of course, you have to be qualified to reflect the Shakti. You have to be sincere and so forth. But they were reflecting the Shakti. That's why they did all these things. And it was, like I say, it was natural, it was spontaneous. It wasn't, you know, these devotees were doing all this as young devotees. We're not talking about, well, 40 years in bhakti and then you can surrender. We're talking about 3 days in the temple and getting in the van, going out and street for 12 hours a day and enjoying it. Like, what kind of culture was that? What kind of atmosphere was that? That was the atmosphere Prabhupada created. So, I don't want to minimize the surrender of the devotees, but we never felt like we were special, more special than you, or doing anything more special than you. We just look at Prabhupada and it was like, let's go out and do it. That's love, right? When you love somebody. There must be like 500 songs, right? When you love somebody, right? And then you can do, that's what you do. Yeah, so that's my answer to that question. Krishna Premavati says, the temples cannot maintain the devotees because the devotees cannot give up comforts of life, isn't it? Well, the temple has a standard. So there's a certain standard of austerity. If you can't live that standard, obviously you won't live in the temple. Yeah. You have to live austerely. In the old days, we were happy with 3 sets of cloth, 3 meals, and a bed in a dormitory with 20 others. Yeah. Well, you're doing good. You got three meals and 3 sets. In San Francisco, in 1970, we got 2 sets. But no, we had 2 meals and no sets of clothes. Like, no sets of clothes. Did you go out naked? No, we just didn't have our own clothes. There was just a big barrel that would come back every day from the laundry, and you'd take your clothes out of that. You didn't own them. So, Krishna Premavati, you're doing way better than me. You had 3 meals. You had 3 meals and 3 sets of clothes. Wow. You were 6 times better than, well, you were 3 times better than us with only 2 meals and no clothes. And then, oh yeah. So then, you're supposed to take a cold shower in the morning. So a lot of the temples, the faucet on the hot water, they just unscrewed it, pulled it. So unless you walked in with a wrench, you couldn't get any hot water. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Which was kind of austere in the winter. Yeah. Sadhyarupa says, maybe in a sense, glorifies Prabhupada and his disciples more. Yeah. Anything you see a Prabhupada disciple do is just a glorification of Prabhupada. So I got Christe to stop thinking for a couple of minutes. That must have been the best couple of minutes you've had in your life, huh? Well, it doesn't compare to thinking of Krishna, but if you're not going to think of Krishna, better think of nothing. I came just after Srila Prabhupada departed, but the mood was still, yeah, the mood stayed there for a few years. Then it started to fade. Very nice reminder to help others by not criticizing. Helps the other, but also helps me by sweeping mind so I can see. Helpful to help, yeah, have a reminder, yeah. Yeah, because, if you're judgmental, what does that say about you? You think, well, this person's bad and I need to tell them. But what does that say about you? Not much, right? It's not good that you're judgmental. Is it? I don't think so. Okay, we can read more now. So Krishna Paramabhati is saying, Prabhupada empowered all those who were in his physical presence. Yeah, he empowered by his presence, just by being who he was. That was like really powerful. A lot of times, devotees will describe some situation. Something happened in Prabhupada's presence, and they'll describe it, how they feel, etc. And then they'll say, so we were in a class, or it was a darshan, and this happened, I was feeling this and that, and he came in and said that. And he said, but I can't remember what Prabhupada said. It's like this whole experience, and they don't remember what Prabhupada said. He was talking something about some professor about something, I can't remember. But just being in his presence was such an experience in and of itself. It's not that we want to minimize hearing from the Guru, but it was powerful. So, okay, it's time for cold showers. Kelly says, why a cold shower? Take one and you'll find out. I am good with many kinds of austerities, but a cold shower every day would make me say and think things that would certainly not please Krishna. That's my condition. Yeah, you could read something about Ayurveda, because it not supposed to be ice cold. That's not healthy. Although I've taken many ice cold showers and had to pay the price of getting sick. But in the morning, you need to wake up and balance the airs and chakras and everything, and that's what cold water does. Or like lukewarm if you can't take cold, just not hot steam in the morning. It's not, half hour in the shower, get up at 3 o'clock so I can take a hour hot steam bath before I go to Mangalartik. No, that's not the mood. Anyway, you can read probably more details under some Ayurvedic description online. But the cold water just kind of washes off the mode of ignorance from sleeping and all that. Of course, chanting Hare Krishna does that as well. Okay, so are we ready to read now? Okay, so now everyone take a cold shower tomorrow morning and see what happens. See if, like, Krishna reveals himself to you. It might happen. There's a lot of, Kelly, if you go in the Brahmacharya ashram in the morning and you get near the shower room, you hear, lots of chanting. Yeah. You hear lots and lots of kirtan. That's why we take a cold shower. It makes you chant more. Exactly. Okay, let's read some more. So this is 1968, April 3rd. One thing you may inform all devotees that Maya cannot touch a pure devotee. When you find a devotee is supposed to be in difficulty, it is not the work of Maya, but it is the work of the Lord by his personal internal energy. The Pandava's tribulation in so many ways, Lord Ramachandra's departure to the forest, his wife, the goddess of fortunes, being kidnapped by Ravana, Lord Krishna's death being caused by the arrow of a hunter, Haridas Thakur being caned in 22 marketplaces, or, listen to this one, Lord Jesus Christ being crucified, are all acts of the Lord personally. We cannot always understand the intricacies of such incidents. Sometimes they are enacted to bewilder persons who are demons. You should therefore discuss in the Ishta. This is interesting. Sometimes they are enacted to bewilder persons who are demons. What does that mean? Because Krishna has that nature. If you want to believe something about Krishna that's completely wrong, he'll show it to you. So specifically, as my daughter used to say when she was a kid, pacifically, in Krishna's leaving this world, it appeared that a hunter accidentally thought Krishna was a deer or an animal, and he shot Krishna in the foot, and then Krishna died. Now, like, how can a spiritual body die? Number one. If he's God, how would he die being shot by someone? Like, he can't control that. So Krishna's thinking is that you want to think I'm material, so I'm going to leave this world in a way that you have all the evidence you need to think I'm material, and you can doubt me because that's what you want to do. I'll give you the evidence to doubt me, and okay, I'm reciprocating. So that's what he does. At least in that case, right? But Prabhupada's point is, these are all leelas, and in the leela, nothing's going to happen out of Krishna's control. Like, well, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, the reason is because God's not in control of everything. So, what can he do? What do you expect? It's not the reason. And if that were the case, he wouldn't be God, because by definition, God is supreme controller. That means everything is in his control. So if something is happening like this, which seems to be out of his control in the Leela, it can't be out of his control. It only appears to be out of his control because it enhances the Leela. But it's totally in his control, right? Krishna's fighting Ravana. Ramchandra's fighting Ravana. It looks like at one point it looks like Ravana might get the upper hand, and Ramchandra will be in difficulty. Maybe Ramchandra could lose. It's just for dramatic effect, because Lord Ramchandra could kill Ravana just by saying Ravana die, and he'd be dead. He doesn't have to use arrows. Doesn't have to have a big fight and so on, but it's Hollywood, That's not exciting. Just say die and you're dead. It's got to be some drama. So, Ramchandra knows all this stuff's going to Bollywood in the future. It's got to make it, got to make it 5-star material. Otherwise, who wants to read Ramayana? If everything's just like, well, Sita was kidnapped and then Ramachandra said, Ravana, you die, and story ends. And they lived happily ever after. That's not a blockbuster. And if that's how it happens, then you'll just go to your romance novels and read them, because this is more interesting than Ramayana. Ramayana is just boom, 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 and Krishna and Ram did it all, and it was finished. So he plays like an ordinary person to create leelas to absorb our minds, right? Or creates leelas in order to fulfill a purpose or in order to teach something. So he creates leelas through his devotees to teach humility, to teach forgiveness, and to teach so many things. That's the idea. So, yes. You should therefore discuss in the Istagosi current reading matters from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. We should only try to understand everything from the standard of devotional service. It is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita that anyone who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is transcendentally situated, and the influence of Maya has no more action on such body. The Lord and his pure devotees are always beyond the range of Maya's action. Even though they appear like the action of Maya, we should understand they are action of Yoga Maya, or the internal potency of the Lord. So sometimes we're trying to understand the Leela. It's confusing. So this is arranged by Krishna. In Krishna Leela, it's not like there's some force. The demons are coming. Krishna doesn't know what to do. What are we going to do now? The devil is overtaking God. No, it's not like that. It's not. Krishna may set it up to look like that, but it's not possible that would happen. Oh, big demon's carrying Krishna away. Why? Because Krishna thinks it's fun. That's why. And he's going to have fun with this asura. And we're going to get to read about it in Srimad Bhagavatam, and we'll also have fun. So it's all planned out. It's all well planned out. Don't worry. Okay. So, Hare Krishna. Okay, so we have 7 minutes. We can read some more. Are you ready to hear more? Aren't these letters amazing? There's so much nectar in the letters. I have a figure for you. I don't know if you know this. Prabhupada's books, well, you have Prabhupada's books, and then you know all the letters. The letters were written, so they didn't have to be transcribed. But then you have conversations, lectures, and morning walks, which all have been transcribed. They're all there on the database. If you want access, you can access every letter, every conversation, every class, and every morning walk. And you know what? Those lectures, those morning walks, those letters and conversations transcribed, comprise 76% of what's now written words of Prabhupada. Well, say not written by Prabhupada, but spoken, but now written down. 76% of what we have of Prabhupada's words are from the lectures, conversations, and morning walks and letters. Isn't that interesting? 76%. Almost, and so there's more than 4 times the amount of information in those sources. There's a lot there. It's good to know. And someday, read them, especially if you're going to take any leading position in ISKCON and management. You should read the letters because there's so much about management in the letters. So here's a question. He wants to know how we may recognize Yoga Maya. How we may know. Prabhupada. Yoga Maya? Yoga Maya means that which connects you. Yoga means connection. When you are being gradually advanced in Krishna consciousness, that is the action of Yoga Maya. And when you are gradually forgetting Krishna, that is the action of Maha-Maya. Maya is acting upon you. The one is dragging you, and one is pushing you the opposite way. Well, that's a good example, right? The difference between Yoga Maya and Maha-Maya. One's dragging and one is pushing, and they're both going in the opposite direction. Maya is dragging you to hell, and Yoga Maya is pushing you back to Godhead. Beautiful. So just like the example that you are always under the laws of the government, you cannot deny this. If you say, I don't agree to abide by the laws of the government. That is not possible. But when you are a criminal, you are under the police laws. And when you are a gentleman, you are under the civil laws. The laws are there in any situation. You have to obey the laws of the government. If you remain as a civilized man, then you are always protected by the civil law. But as soon as you are against the state, the criminal law will act upon you. So, what do you want, ladies and gentlemen? Freedom or prison? But I just want to do whatever I want. All right, end up in prison. If you want to do whatever you want, you'll end up in prison, and then you won't be able to do whatever you want. So, think about that. So the criminal activities of law is Maha-Maya, threefold miseries, always. Always putting in some sort of misery. And the civil department of Krishna, Anandam Bhuti Bhardhanam. You simply go on increasing. I mean to say, depth of the ocean of joy. Anandam Bhuti Bhardhanam. Bhardhanam, Bhardhanam. This is the difference. Yogamaya and Maha-Maya. Yogamaya is the original. Yogamaya is Krishna's internal potency. That is Radharani. And Maha-Maya, external potency, Durga. Okay. Let's read one more. We have time. This is from a letter, May 1st, 1969. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samanvitaha. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am not exposed to everyone. There is a curtain of Yoga Maya. The Yoga Maya will not allow you to see God, just like we have our condition. That if anyone wants to see here in the temple, we ask him, first of all, take off your shoes. Just a little condition. Similarly, to see God, there must be some condition. That condition is that unless you become a lover of God, God is not exposed to you. Otherwise, God is always there. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena shantas sadeva hridayeshu. Hare Krishna. Okay. That is from May 1st, 1969 in Boston. So we will end there. Okay, we're finished, everyone. Nice to see you. We won't see you tomorrow. We're doing a conference, interfaith conference tomorrow. Starts at 10. And I think we sent out the invitation. So you're all welcome to come. It's a panel of different religious leaders. I'm going to be talking about education. I won't talk that much. Share a few words. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.